Welcome to the 16th Annual LA Games Conference. Thank you to everyone to this amazing, resilient community for joining us today. Your industry leaders, and many of you are friends and colleagues. I want to take a minute to talk about these extraordinary times we're in. To everyone who's experiencing hardship, whether it's economic or health related, we want to send you our deepest sympathies and hopes for a speedy recovery. We didn't expect 4 months ago that we'd be holding this event in a virtual forum, yet, here we are, and I couldn't be more proud of Tim's Arner team and all the people who have come together to support the LA Games community, which is a true pillar of the global games business today. Like so many folks out there, we've had to pivot and reinvent our business model to adapt to the times. And while it's been difficult at times, I can say with 100% certainty that it's also been reinvigorating and inspiring to connect with our community in new ways and build something exciting and new in the face of adversity. So with that, I want to say that we have an amazing 3 days ahead of us with speakers and timely themes about the future of the games business. Our talks are designed to be practical and forward-thinking as they are when we meet in person, and we'll express an overall feeling of optimism about the future of the industry. Each of our 3 days has a theme. Today's theme is focused on the business of games, and it'll feature 4 sessions, 2 keynote sessions and 2 panels. Tomorrow's theme focuses on Hollywood and creators, and we will have a keynote presentation and 2 panels. On Friday, we focus on esports and mobile, featuring 2 research presentations and 2 panels. Please note that each session has its own distinct Zoom link, which you've been sent by the events team. So make sure that you have the correct link for each panel. Before we introduce the first session, I want to take a minute to recognize some important people and companies that have been instrumental to making this event happen. To our friends at Samsung Ads and Xsolla, thank you for your support and professionalism. It's always a pleasure working with you. And to the many associations, speakers, and individuals who have helped raise awareness of this event, you are the heart and soul of the industry, and we love what you do. Thank you for your support. A few housekeeping items too. We encourage your involvement in the event, and you can do that in 2 ways. First, please introduce yourself in the chat. Feel free to post your LinkedIn if you'd like to, a short description of where you work. It's a great way to interact with folks and engage and meet new contacts. Secondly, first, when you do introduce yourself, please make sure to change the drop-down from panelists to panelists and attendees so that everybody can see your post. Otherwise, it just goes to us on the panel. Secondly, please post your questions for the panel in the Q&A area, which is on the lower nav, which sends them directly to our panelists and moderators. We'll do our best to cover your questions, time permitting. Finally, for most of our sessions, we'll be posting audience polls during the segments, and we encourage you to participate as your questions and responses will help shape the panel discussions. All right, without further ado, join me in welcoming our first panel, a keynote conversation with Samsung Ads and Liquid Advertising. From console to cloud, the future of gaming on smart devices. Please welcome our speakers, Chris Gillette, VP Media, Liquid Advertising, Mike Lucero, Director of Product Management, Gaming at Samsung, and our moderator is Nick Barrionuevo, Gaming Partnerships Lead at Samsung Ads. Welcome, gentlemen. Pleased to have you join us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ned, and the LA Games Conference team. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. Notwithstanding the global landscape, we are operating in an especially transformative time for gaming and our industry. And it's the transformation of the industry and the possibilities within that which has brought us all together today. So it's almost fitting for this discussion to be virtual. Regardless of how it's felt at times over the last couple of months, the industry is on the verge of a period of rapid evolution. This year promises to deliver the next generation of gaming consoles, smart devices, and emerging cloud platforms against the backdrop of the fastest connection speeds, the most realistic graphics, and brilliant displays. Gameplay will never be the same. I'm Nick Barrionuevo, Gaming Partnerships Lead at Samsung Ads. Samsung Ads delivers advanced TV advertising at scale. Our smart TV solutions are built on the largest proprietary source of TV data from more than 50 million smart TVs and over 60% of the US ACR footprint. Samsung Ads provides the holistic view of the consumer journey, connecting linear, OTT, gaming, mobile, and more. We work across the gaming sector, helping our game publisher partners, hardware manufacturers, and cloud developers to use Samsung Ads' exclusive insights and native products to reach gamers where and when they're ready to play. Now, today we've assembled a great panel, and over the last week, I've had the pleasure of speaking with Chris and Mike to get some insights into how you are all navigating the current gaming landscape. So first, we have Mike Lucero, who Ned mentioned. He's Director of Product Management for Gaming at Samsung. Mike is a veteran of the gaming industry, having built and launched 3 Xbox consoles while pioneering the groundbreaking Xbox Live service. His gamer tag is actually just Mike, if you can believe it. Mike has also played a major role in the gaming media landscape, bringing Twitch to Xbox, and then joined Twitch afterwards to lead global monetization for streamers. At Samsung, Mike leads product management for gaming, where he connects Samsung's vast audience across devices with the leading players in the gaming ecosystem. Now next, we have Chris Gillette, who is Vice President of Media at Liquid Advertising, which is one of the leading gaming agencies in the country. Chris has over 15 years of experience in marketing, advertising, and business development across gaming, entertainment, music, and consumer electronics. In 2009, he joined Liquid Advertising, whose portfolio of current gaming clients is a who's who. It includes 2K Games, Bethesda, CD Projekt Red, Konami, Sega, Square Enix, and more. Now, what was fascinating in talking to everyone was that even across different parts of the gaming industry, we're all looking at these challenges we're facing right now as real opportunities. There is no industry in the world that reinvents itself quite like gaming, and we're certainly at the beginning of that next burst of innovation and expansion. At Samsung Ads specifically, we've seen incredible growth since the start of the year. With gamers on our smart TVs in the US, we've seen almost 1 billion gaming sessions to date. Over the last few months, we've been growing at an average of 250 million gaming sessions per month. And I know that those in the audience have seen similar engagement growth on their end. So these are certainly interesting times indeed. So as a group, let's dive into some of those developments and how you're all adapting to this transformative time. Let's kind of zoom out. Let's take a moment. Let's zoom out first. There's no doubt that this is a year of accelerated transformation in gaming, one where we are experiencing another sort of major inflection point in the industry, quite possibly one of our most important moments to date for the future of gaming. With that said, the hardcore gamer is still the ultimate influencer in the market, and the ecosystem continues to grow as gamers have more ways to express their passions and also engage with the community. Now, to start things off, before we get into the questions for the panelists, we wanted to get a sense of what everyone in the audience is most excited about this year. So Laura, can you please show the first poll question? Okay, so everyone take a moment to answer the question. The question is, what do you think will be the most transformative moment for gaming in 2020? A, new console launches, B, new game launches, or C, the growth of esports? Now, let's see, let me answer. All right. Great. And so we will reveal the answers after we hear from Mike and Chris. So Mike, let's jump into it with you first. You've been involved in the last 3 console launches from Xbox. How is the landscape different now for publishers in the gaming ecosystems as these next generation consoles launch?
Yeah, and you raised a very good point in your opening remarks, Nick. I mean, the beauty of the gaming industry, and it's somewhat sort of the reason that people find it so interesting from sort of outside the industry, is that there are certain things that will always remain constant in the industry, and there are certain things that will remain the same. I mean, that will evolve and be different. So the constants are things that you mentioned, like, the importance of the hardcore gamer. At the end of the day, this industry can't get anything past the hardcore gamer. So they have only become more important over time. So they are the ultimate judges of all the innovation that's coming and whether it'll be successful or not. So each console and each sort of big phenomena in gaming sort of has those attributes. So, if I look back quickly at some of the work that I had worked on, for the first few consoles, the original Xbox and the 360, it was a lot about online console gaming, which was very transformative and very much geared towards that hardcore user. It really started with Halo 2. That was really what made that a moment in gaming. And again, that was a very hardcore gaming type of title, but then obviously that expanded far beyond that. And for the PS4 and the Xbox One, the transformative moment there was around digital distribution, and the entire industry evolved dramatically with that. And that wasn't necessarily the original intent. There was certainly some controversy at the beginning of those console launches around digital distribution, but eventually it became a new normal. So while there's are all sorts of exciting things sort of on the horizon with this next generation of consoles, including, obviously cloud stream gaming is going to be big. There's a bunch of new gaming formats. Battle Royale is something that didn't exist previously. Things like that. Is that whatever we end up doing has to be meaningful to the hardcore gamer, and then it will spread. The other thing I would say that is super important at this moment, as people start thinking about this next wave, is that now there are more ways than ever to involve those influential gamers. With the rise of live streaming like Twitch and Mixer and YouTube gaming, even Facebook, there's a lot of they have a lot of places to get their message out there. So that's an important sort of putting them on the pedestal where they can really have impact makes them even more important in the mix. And then, lastly, esports is creating a kind of a new pedestal for those influencers and creating a whole new series of influencers. So, and I guarantee you that when we come here in maybe not next year, but maybe in 2 or 3 years, there will be whole new things that we didn't expect that came out of this current wave of innovation. So I think the most important thing is that what you learn when you work with influencers, and this goes back to my first days on Xbox and my most recent days at Twitch, and now as I help shape our strategy for Samsung, is whatever we need to do must be authentic to gamers. If it doesn't work for them, they're gonna see right through it and it's gonna flop. So you have to be willing to iterate, take risks, and you will inevitably fail on some of those risks, but you will be applauded for taking a risk and sort of figuring things out. So be bold and embrace the innovation and embrace the dynamics of the industry. That's kind of my sort of initial thought.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really interesting, the remark about how with each iteration of innovation, then new things that we didn't even think about or sort of anticipate sort of come out of that. So I thought that was really interesting as well. Chris, similar question, and from your perspective, you've been advising major game publishers for years on how to navigate the media landscape. How should we think about and talk about where we are today and what we should expect in the near term?
Yeah, definitely. Today I would say that we're kind of at a state where we're seeing more change than ever, and really trying to figure out ways to really meet client business objectives through paid media, and really looking at purchase behavior and how that's rapidly evolving. More than ever, we are looking at kind of return on ad spend and proving out dollar for dollar the effectiveness of various forms of advertising, which has become really the foundation of how we view various digital partners and also just media in general in the overall landscape.
That's great. And Chris and Mike, either one can start on this question, but as a marketer and a product director sort of perspective, either trying to reach the gamer as an audience or an endemic gaming brand, trying to develop, an IP. How do you make sense of the ecosystem and determine where to drive investment? Chris, I don't know, maybe we'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, really it's more and more we're looking to partners that have, a really data-centric approach. And that, with using that data, we can really ladder it up to overall marketing and media strategic pillars. Really it's exciting to see a lot of our clients embracing new tech and reaching beyond kind of the usual methods of reaching various gaming audiences. What we're going to be kind of seeing in the near term too is, more sophisticated kind of cross-screen measurement, on and offline attribution, and more leverage for us to pull based off of smarter data.
Great.
Yeah, and I would echo that. Data is obviously one of the key parts of the equation, and accountability, and really driving the performance that's required. And I think marketers both in the industry and outside, and this has been one of the most exciting things even since some of the other platforms I've worked on, is the realization that gaming is where it's at from a marketing perspective. So whether you're, and everybody has their own KPIs that they're going after, and there is data in there to support it. And frankly, the industry's done a pretty good job of plumbing the products with the data that is required for marketers to be successul. With big sort of more standardized measurement being built into a lot of the experiences, which is great. But whether you're a publisher or a peripherals manufacturer trying to drive business revenue from within the ecosystem, and having a very deliberate approach around how you take advantage of influencers and drive media around that, and then continue to push down the funnel, or whether you're a brand that's trying to really engage with this audience that's watching less and less traditional sports, and really driving viewership at insane levels at esports. Again, they have completely different KPIs, but the data is there that makes it very competitive with traditional media outlets. And so there's really something there for everyone. So I encourage everybody to take the right approach, take a slightly different approach than elsewhere, but really there are smart things you can do if you work with the right partners to be successful.
That's great, and we'll actually touch on data in a few later on in this conversation. So I appreciate you bringing that up and how important that is. So first, we're going to reveal the poll question results. Lauren, okay. So what do you think will be the most transformative moment for gaming in 2020? So the top pick at 38% was new console launches. So that's interesting. And new game launches was second at 21%, and then the growth of esports. Well, actually, no, the growth of esports is at 41%. Sorry, I was reading it upside down. So that's interesting. So the growth of esports is where we see sort of the most transformative moment happening in gaming in 2020, and then new console launches. Mike, what do you think of that? I know you'd probably be interested in that.
Well, I would say in terms of sheer growth, that's probably not a bad assessment, because esports continues to grow. Even in these times now, we are at a sort of in a the industry has continued to strengthen based even under current conditions. It's allowed sporting communities to connect through esports, which has been nice that there is some sporting out there for people to flock to, and they have, which is great. And investments by all the big players, and we've got new leagues coming. Obviously, this year the Call of Duty League is going to be a big impact. So there's continued to be investment and growth. There's no question that the growth trajectory is there. But I'm a console guy, so I think the consoles are going to be really, for me at least, that's what I'm excited about. And again, it all fits together, and it's funny because the console world is actually the least connected to the esports world, which I've always found fascinating. Even though it kind of started, Ninja obviously began with Halo, and that whole esports thing kind of began there and grew. But at the end of the day, this is a different type of gaming than on the console, and it's because I love it all. So I look forward to seeing them all grow dramatically.
That's great. So I mean, whatever we're most excited about, I think we can all agree that the emergence of cloud gaming will certainly sort of, have another sort of dimension of an impact on the gaming industry. And, with the evolution of consoles, mobile, and cloud gaming, there are increasingly more opportunities for gamers to connect and build community. And this provides publishers and marketers with the potential for a more intimate relationship. Mike and Chris, Mike, maybe we'll start with you. Are you seeing gamers switch between platforms and devices in a way that they didn't previously?
Yeah, I think there's a newfound fluidity between platforms that, I think it used to be that, it was really, there was much more rigidity around what people, which form factor people flock to. But, with the evolution of game formats, the fact that you can, that there's, that you can play across platforms, on a single game, is an amazing achievement, and people love that. The fact that you can play Fortnite from your phone against other people on different platforms is amazing. So I think that's going to continue to up-level the seriousness, if you will, of mobile games. And then, likewise, they're for a more immersive experience. People are going to continue to go to the consoles and the PCs. So I think what's happening is that the diversity of the gameplay is bringing in more people to different, and the desire for them to bring that with them wherever they go. And I think, the Switch is a great crossover device because, it's kind of the best of both worlds. So there's a lot that all the sort of platforms can learn from Switch when it comes to either whether it's around IP or different form factors. So I think that the Switch really did unlock a lot of that sort of belief that the portable experience can be really powerful. And I think that's going to bleed into this next generation of gaming. And then obviously adding cloud to that is going to, bring a whole new realm of sort of high level gaming to the mobile experience, and, eventually other platforms as well.
That's great. And Chris, I imagine, you look at that space very closely in terms of, how do you follow that life cycle and sort of the extension of those, publisher IPs through your media strategy. Maybe talk a little bit about kind of what you're seeing from your perspective.
Yeah, I think that Mike really hit the nail on the head. If you look at some NPD data from 2020, 40% of Switch owners also own an Xbox or PlayStation. So, people, like you said, are really trying to play their favorite games wherever they can, hopefully with cross-play, continuing to grow. One thing that's kind of looking at, cloud streaming, I think there's a lot of great opportunity for how that's going to change monetization for various types of games, whether, it be a games as a service model, new twists on free-to-play, or even, building out these new monthly subscription models too. Next gen is going to be really, really amazing, and cloud is going to really push us to the next level.
That's great. And how could you see consoles of the future kind of complementing cloud streaming services, and what kind of new opportunities are possible from each of your perspectives? I don't know, Chris, do you want to go with that first, or?
Yeah, really, I think that it's going to be able to really lean on to people's very fierce passions for these consoles, whether it be, Switch or PlayStation or Xbox, and really being able to leverage their fandom and bring in new audiences and mass adoption through things like obviously great new games, new tech, and new experiences across the board.
Yeah. Mike,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, no, I think it's a slightly tricky question because I think it's going to be, again, I mentioned before that it's an evolution, not a revolution. I think it's, over this next span of consoles, that migration will move forward pretty significantly, but it's not going to happen overnight. So I think you're going to see a lot of players, taking sort of a measured approach. And but that said, they're still already leaning heavily onto cloud, today, whether it's around distribution or around, some of the game types are very, very cloud dependent. So it's just a matter of sort of getting the technology where you can have a great experience playing, off the internet essentially, which still has a ways to go, but I'm confident it'll get there. And once that happens, then that will be truly transformative. But again, it's going to be the same. People are just going to be able to have more choices in more places. which means they can spend more time gaming, which is ultimately what it's all about. That will be the biggest thing, is that they'll have more portability and more choices, which is a win for everyone, including the ecosystem.
Yeah, that's great. And I know we talked about, and Mike, you sort of touched on, and Chris earlier in the conversation, how data is so important to this whole sort of ecosystem and equation. And with data comes the ability to make more meaningful and actionable marketing campaigns and products, right? And obviously, speaking to this audience of very senior leaders in the space, data is core to making decisions. And whether it's around future product innovation or media and marketing strategy. Chris, maybe we'll start with you. How are you using data to reach gamers today? I know that's probably a big part of it. And where are you finding the most traction and success driving media strategy?
Yeah, definitely. Really, a lot of what we're seeing more and more is our clients that do have a strong first-party data kind of layer that we can then amplify and use custom tailored audiences across self-serve platforms is really moving the needle continually. Things like building out lookalike models, suppression lists, exclusion lists, are making our dollars much more cost-effective and lean overall. We are seeing some of the indie publishers that don't have as much data there struggle in this regard a little bit, but there are ways that we're trying to solve for their problems as well. So really, having a strong CRM list and really being able to leverage, your current fan base has been very, very important. When talking, programmatically, DV360, Trade Desk, a lot of the things that I'm going to fall into kind of a custom audience bucket is really where we're seeing great low and mid funnel metrics. And that's really been kind of two linchpins of great performance overall.
Yeah, and I know you've talked about a little bit in our conversations, how you could see in the future how cloud data are sort of, taking that data and doing certain things that you've talked about could influence marketing campaigns of the future. Maybe if you wanted to touch on that for a moment.
Yeah, really, as we're kind of heading towards a cookieless world and third-party data segments are becoming less and less important, likely by 2022-ish. We are seeing ways that we can kind of amplify and kind of figure out how to have the walled gardens commingle their data in a better and smarter way. That's really kind of future state that we're talking, but it's something that I think we will be seeing more and more, and see more companies that are able to do that, and that being kind of a solution to a lot of problems. And also, a lot of digital publishers, are building out their own first-party data segments like never before, whether that be, a Polygon or a Fandom, or even, yesterday, New York Times announced that they're going to be doing the same.
Yeah, that's great. And how are new areas such as, obviously in our space, connected TV and ACR, helping publishers and advertisers be smarter and more efficient in how they reach gamers? Chris, maybe we'll stay with you for a sec.
Yeah, definitely, using partners like Samsung and other CTV partners in general, we're able to really create advanced gaming audiences and look at, not just kind of front end metrics, but also, more granular metrics that really are leveraging some of that ACR. So that could be, things by looking at, ad exposed gameplays or conversions. That could be inferred value of sales, or even, how long someone's playing a certain game or how many times they booted up a game.
Yeah. And Mike, are you in your work, developing products, how do you kind of look at the connected TV space and the data that you get from ACR and things like that?
Sure, no, that's a great question. And for me, that's sort of the joy of being working on this platform, is that, with this insight, for me, it's all about creating great user experiences and driving user engagement, and which makes the ecosystem successful. And as we use this data to help us make our decisions and help us, both from a programming standpoint, and also from presenting the right choices to our users that help them make the best decisions for what they want. Using that behavioral data to really allow them to get what they want. One of the biggest issues that I see out there with customers I've spoken to is that there's just so much out there. I mean, it's it's a huge industry, as we all know, and there's just so many diverse pockets, and there's so much stuff you just don't know about. So if we can use that behavioral data, saying, hey, you're watching this streamer, and you're playing these games and doing this on mobile. There's so much that can go into that. And if you can make informed choices to make a much better user experience, that gets me, that's what gets me excited about, the next generation of experiences that we're building here, and that I'm sure the entire industry is building.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, kind of going with that line of reasoning, we know consumers are everywhere, and sort of they're making their decisions to buy and play in different areas, as you've talked about. How are you trying to understand user behavior across these platforms in the respect of, are there any sort of certain audience segmentations in particular, market segmentations, where you've seen sort of interesting trends emerge?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the more interesting things in general is that historically, there's been a lot of sort of bifurcation or trifurcation, if you will, if that's a word, around audiences. There's PC gamers, there's console gamers, and there's mobile gamers, and there hasn't been a lot of sort of cross-pollination between. There's been some, but not at a very discrete level where you can actually really think about these audiences across their experiences. So I think that's from a product sort of creator perspective, and certainly this will very much bleed over into the creator ecosystem, is that as you can think about the multiple touch points across these platforms, I think you're going to have an opportunity to create a bunch of really new experiences that just don't exist today. And there is an appetite for that. The consumers want to know. It's like, if I'm playing this console game, and I want to do something slightly different but related in mobile, there is an appetite for that. And I think opportunities to create some really cool sort of companion experiences, for example.
Yeah. And Chris, are you seeing, you talk about kind of how you're leveraging, sort of different ways of thinking about the data and the segmentations, and how you're using that to sort of more efficiently drive your media strategy. And, is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, really kind of also looking at, where and how people are making decisions to buy and play. Of course, we can look at kind of standard social media. We can look at streaming platforms like Twitch or YouTube. But really, we are trying to dig deeper into finding kind of when in those time of day moments that people are maybe most perceptive to our message in general. So, things like day parts aren't as important. It's really more time of day of when they're going to be reaching for their phones, or listening to a podcast, or watching an influencer stream.
Yeah. That's great. And with all these changes in data and products and marketing strategy and everything we're talking about, this raises the big question about how do we better understand the consumer, and how companies like ours can reach them. And so I wanted to kick off the next section, the next discussion with a polling question. And Laura, if you want to put up the poll question for everyone. So everyone, how do you expect your marketing budgets to change in the next 12 months? Either that's A, decrease, B, stay the same, or C, increase. So this will be a quick poll, and we'll answer it, just in a few moments. So, but it'll be really interesting to see where everyone lands, especially, given how much growth we're seeing, but obviously, these headwinds that we're also sort of experiencing in the interim. So this is a quick poll, and Laura, maybe if we're ready to reveal the results, it'd be great. Okay, great. So how do you expect your marketing budgets to change in the next 12 months? I'm going to read it correctly this time. So 46% is the highest, and that's increase. So the majority of folks believe that their marketing budgets will increase over the next 12 months, and 32% decrease, and 21% stay the same. So that's great news, I think, for everyone. I think, there's a lot of people who are very bullish. But then, there's folks that want to sort of be a little bit more of a wait and see approach. So all reasonable. certainly. And that's really important because no matter what your plans are, every single one of us needs to be smarter and needs to start with the gamer, right? In understanding consumer habits so we can best deliver them, new and engaging experiences. So I know we touched on how willing industry insiders are to embrace transformation, embrace transformation, but how much of that is ultimately adopted and driven by consumers and consumer habits. So Mike, maybe we'll start with you. What gamer habits do you see sort of changing now or in flux? And do you see gamers' expectations or values sort of having changed recently over the years? And maybe talk about that.
Sure, absolutely. So I think one of the most exciting things that's going to be happening in the next couple of years is that we've got, as there's this convergence of sort of how you consume data, and I mean, how you consume games and how you purchase games. There's this sort of very classic console model where it's already eroding, but it's still pretty strong, where you spend a lot of money on a game and it comes out and then you buy updates and you buy more stuff within it. But this very sort of standard approach. And then on the mobile side, it's completely different, where a lot of it is you purchase things in-app purchase and ad-based and all that kind of stuff. So for me, one of the most fascinating things that I look forward to sort of participating in over the next few years is seeing those converge. We have seen is that all those platforms are important to people. So, but their expectations around those platforms are different for each form factor. So I think those lines are going to start melting. And what we're going to see is that there's going to be some cross-pollination, which will be fascinating in terms of who the winners and losers are in that world. So for me, the values will start evolving from sort of into a new sort of soup of values that will be just an amazing soup to figure out which is the right one for your sort of business. So that's one of the areas that I'm most excited about, and I really see some interesting discussions with within the entire ecosystem. And it doesn't just involve it's not a monolithic approach anymore. It's like what does that mean for streamers? What does that mean for esports? And there's going to be other things that emerge as well. There's a lot of these with some of these easy development tools. There's games are easier to be developed by some of the influencers, the Roblox and stuff like that. So there's going to be a whole new set of sort of indie games that sprout from this as well. So it's going to be sort of a quirky soup of new business models, new creative forces start coming into the ecosystem, doing different things than they have historically. So yeah, it's going to be. I think everything's in flux. And it'll be interesting how it all shakes out.
That's great. And Chris, I don't know if you're seeing similar type of trends or different trends from your perspective where you sit.
Yeah, maybe this is a little bit more of a micro trend that we're seeing kind of over the first half of 2020. But we've seen kind of a resurgence in people obviously really willing to dig into kind of legacy titles, whether it be kind of in the last 5 years, but even longer. So we have seen some of our clients willing to invest in, publisher sales or even deeper discounted titles in general. And we've seen really, really great ROI there. Another thing that we've seen that we really, really think are awesome is obviously kind of a resurgence of remastered versions of older games. Look at Final Fantasy VII, look at Zelda Link Evolution from last year coming to Switch. These new IPs that are kind of trying to compete with some of the older legacy IPs have some interesting learnings across the board.
That's interesting. And Mike, I guess, how do you anticipate consumer trends or consumer habits are changing over the next 2 years, particularly during this transformation from console to cloud options? You sort of talked about the soup of, sort of new and different business models sort of merging with existing and sort of legacy models. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think what will actually ultimately sort of land in the cloud universe is sort of whatever the soup becomes is going to be sort of what that yields. And I don't think we're there yet. Right now, we're seeing very sort of what I'll call console-centric or PC-centric offerings that are out there that are sort of taking what's been historically out there and just sort of repurposing it in the cloud. But I think the cost model around cloud game streaming, which is not cheap, requires some more innovation in terms of how to how some of these other business models can make it more economically viable for those providers. So I think introducing some of those new models into that will ultimately manifest itself in making the economics of cloud game streaming actually work. So I think I'm not quite answering your question because I'm sort of looking at it through the lens of the cloud streamers or cloud streaming companies. But I think the appetite of how consumers end up purchasing these products and what their expectations are around that is what's really going to drive a lot of the industry. And there's going to be it's not going to be pure just consoles on the web. I think there's going to be some other things there that emerge that will be interesting.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting feedback, especially, it all comes back to consumer habits, but how we adapt to that. So that's really interesting. Unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our session. This has been just an amazing conversation. And thank you, Mike and Chris. Your insights are just really valued and appreciated. And I wanted to close out Mike and Chris on a high note. Okay, as you look ahead to the future horizon, what upcoming launches in the industry this year are you most excited about? Maybe Chris, we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. Kind of going out of the Xbox 2020 announcement on May 7th, things like smart delivery sounds really, really exciting and really great experience for gamers in general. And then, looking forward to hearing what PlayStation's going to be doing too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike?
And I kind of already sort of announced what I'm most excited about. Again, being a console, nothing beats a year where two console behemoths go at it head to head. And even in these conditions that we're currently facing where things are hard, they're charging full steam ahead. And, there was some exciting announcements the last couple of weeks from both PlayStation and Xbox. I saw some of the new IP. It looks wonderful. The Epic Unreal Game Engine was wonderful. I'm super excited for the July Halo Infinite sort of announcement that happens then. So this is the kind of, if I'm stuck indoors all summer long, these beats will make my summer much better, and I'll sit inside, not sunburn, and just watch a bunch of great game trailers as we get into the fall and eventually get our hands on these consoles. So I'm super psyched about all the consoles and all the sort of industry enthusiasm that bubbles up around them.
That's great. That's great. And I share your passion for the new consoles, but also the graphics. Just the video that was going around with Unreal the other day was just incredible. And so just combining that with being able to potentially down the road experience your games and different platforms and all those sorts of things is really exciting. So anyways, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it, Mike and Chris. And thank you all to the audience. We really appreciate your time, and we wish everyone the best in these times, and obviously in the future as we all go through this next sort of explosion and inflection point in the industry we're so excited about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick, Mike, and Chris. Lots of great insights out of today's discussion, and no doubt some topics that we'll be revisiting throughout the 3 days. I thought it was really interesting, Mike, your comment about the cross-pollination of gamers across devices and what that means for the creator ecosystem. And we'll certainly be diving into that tomorrow on our franchise development panel on the Hollywood and Creators segment. So really appreciate you queuing up some of these issues for the rest of the event.
Super. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. All right, folks, listen, we are going to take a brief break, and then at the top of the hour, in 15 minutes, we'll be kicking off with our View from the Top, the State of the Digital Games Business panel. And remember that you do need to leave this Zoom link and join the link that was sent to you for the next panel. That will always be the way that it works throughout the event. So make sure to find the link in your email for the View from the Top State of the Game Business panel, and we will be kicking off at 11 a.m. Pacific on the dot. So I'll join you guys there. Thanks, everybody.